is the Western Wall, known as the Kotel Hamaravi, also known as the Wailing Wall. This isn't the section that's the Wailing Wall, but the Jews don't call it the Wailing Wall. I think I clarified that before. And the Western Wall extends. It goes beyond that blocked off area there. It continues. And the place where people come to pray is beyond that. And then it even continues further underground, under houses, all the way almost to the Lion's Gate. I know that's hard for you to grasp right now because you don't have a picture of the old city, but you'll see it. You'll look at a map of Jerusalem, we'll look at a model of Jerusalem, and then you'll be able to grasp it more clearly. It's a much longer wall than what you probably imagined. The section where one prays is only a very limited area. This right here, this arch, it's in a state of destruction. This was an arch, a bridge, an entrance up to the Temple Mount. You saw it in the movie. He was walking under it. The market stalls are over here. And all over this entire area are hundreds of ritual baths. Because this is where you would immerse to become ritually clean and then go up in whichever area you were going up to the Temple Mount. So they have mikvaot everywhere around here. The wall itself, that you can see that a lot of it's been reconstructed, destroyed, reconstructed. Different stones are used from different periods of time, lots of recycling going on. But what you look at, if you want to see what is Herodian, you look at the stones, the massive stones that have this beveled edge. It's only for beauty, right? That's Herodian. That's like his signature. You see that kind of stone right here, everywhere? That's all Herodian. And you see that the lower section is made of those massive stones. And if you take a look in a moment, if you're able to, you can see that the corner stone, or you can even see this one right here in the middle, but the one down below is even more massive. It's so massive, it's inconceivable. How did they move these? And there are different theories.
Are these, like those things, are these stones or are they like huge bricks that they've made?
What do you mean? I don't get the difference.
Like that, like this stone right here, that stone.
No, they're bricks. It's not carved out.
Right, so is it ground up? Is it a stone or is it a brick?
It's a quarried stone, is it not?
It's a
Quarried stone.
It's quarried and carved.
So it's not like a manufactured brick.
Not like they made a mold and
Oh,
made
no,
a
they
stone.
were chiseled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all chiseled. No. These are stone. These are solid limestone.
That is a 5 or 6 foot by
Yeah, there's even a larger one down below.
15 feet.
No, I'm just thinking there's one right below that's still larger. Now, the thing is, if you look from here and you look upward, then all of a sudden you see stones that are a lot smaller. Those are from later periods. Not the 20th century, but later periods that were built up higher, and the smallest ones are always Ottoman period. Mamluk Ottoman period, right? But the wall, this foundation wall was much higher at the time of Jesus, at the time of the Romans. Herod built it much higher, and when the Romans destroyed Jerusalem, they pushed off massive sections of it down to the ground below, and we see those right there. This whole area was covered. Archaeologists have uncovered it. Those stones were just recently, in the last maybe 15 years uncovered. Those massive blocks. And they were uncovered and they can't be moved. That's where they fell 2,000 years ago, and that's where they are staying. But you can see that as the Romans destroyed Jerusalem, those massive stones were pushed, they were parts of the wall, pushed into the street below. That's the street, and you can see that they damaged the street. It's not earthquake damaged, although there was an earthquake, but the stones actually made the street, the Herodian street, buckle. And why also? Because there's a tunnel underneath it. There's a drainage channel underneath that road right there that the Romans built, draining water from here because we're at a higher point and it rains here and then it can flood. So the Romans had this whole drainage system that brought water through a tunnel system out into the Kidron Valley.
Surprisingly, it didn't completely collapse.
It didn't, and you could even go through them today. They've been open for about 4 years to the public, where you enter in the city of David, down by the pool of Siloam, you enter the tunnel and then you emerge right where this gate is, and you go underneath ground through the Roman tunnel. In fact, from the city of David, there are 3 different tunnels from 3 different periods. The Roman tunnel is only the most recent one here. That's actually, it was built. It wasn't dug through stone like the ones that we saw in Megiddo. We're going to go through a Hezekiah's tunnel, which is much older, which is part of this whole system. But that was a drainage channel, and when the archaeologists they cleared it out, the whole tunnel, they found kitchen utensils, pots and pans and things that obviously somebody put there and used, and they thought, what could this possibly be underground in this Roman tunnel? And it's described in Josephus that the rebels hid everywhere, all over Jerusalem, towards the end of the destruction. And in fact, these kitchen utensils were being used by rebel families that hid underneath in the Roman tunnels until the Romans came and smoked them out. And that was the end of Jerusalem, basically. But you can walk through those tunnels. That's part of a visit to this museum and the city of David. We're going to go down so that you can actually walk on the pavement, because this pavement dates back 2,000 years. This is where Jesus would have walked, right? You can see people emerging from the tunnel right now. And down below, when we go down, people are standing by this broken block, which is a part authentic piece and part replica.
We saw it.
The part that broke off and you can tell the difference is in the museum, and there's an inscription on the rock right here. That's the corner that would have been at the top of the wall, and on the corner it says this is the place of the trumpeting. This is where the trumpeter would stand to announce Shabbat, for example, right? So they have a little depiction there, a recreation, that you can see that stone and you can see the inscription, the place of trumpeting. And then,
is there rooms up here?
well, now there is. This is inside, is all part of the Muslim, the walk. It's under Al-Aqsa. Al-Aqsa is right here.
So, but this was higher than it is now?
Yeah, it was higher.
And when were those rooms put in?
During the Ottoman period, or Mamluk period, it has a Persian arch over it that indicates Mamluk.
Oh, I see that.
Okay, now we can see it. For those of you not going down, this massive block. Right? And there's even a much more massive one in the tunnel tour. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And that's this cornerstone here is the one I'm pointing out to. There's an inscription. That's a copy. That section is a copy, but it says to the place of the trumpeting. So that's where the trumpeter would have stood. That's the cornerstone of the top of the wall. And it was pushed down by the Romans, smashed, of course, and then buried and covered until the 70s, 80s, 90s, and now when this has all been dug out and continues to be part of a dig. They continue to discover things here.
This was all under dirt?
Yep.
Till when?
Until after the 6-Day War. The Robinson's Arch had been uncovered, had been discovered by an archaeologist named Robinson in the 19th century. He dug during the Ottoman period, but then the Ottomans also stopped giving him permits to dig because they said it's coming too close to our Al-Aqsa Mosque, and they didn't want it. The area is very problematic to dig. There's a lot of protesting on the side of the Muslims when digs take place. Then it passes, and
Would this have been the staircase up to those?
No, it would have. The arch would have gone all the way over there. There's a redepiction, and the staircase would have been over here, and it was a bridge going over this.
The staircase would have gone over.
This here is the road underneath the arch.
I just don't know what it is.
It would have been an elevated road, perhaps. Store stalls here. This was all market area.
Oh, there's walls coming out of there from there, huh? Like a stall.
It could. This is also later. Very
See
likely.
that wall
This.
coming out of there? So would that be stalls like this along that wall?
I mean, a lot of this is still rubble. This kind of stuff, the smaller stuff.
Now, where's the rock? I want to see the rock.
Well, we can go down.
I can't go down.
And there's also an inscription to look at underneath one of those bushes. It's like a graffiti telling you to glory in the beauty of the temple. your Robinsons are? Yeah, it's just a bridge. Yeah, well, one of them. I'll show you a picture.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
You had the final battle with the Jewish court. And during that battle, when the Jewish court fell to
I'm trying to get a sense for
and they couldn't get him outside the city. So the rabbis gave them permission to bury him in the courtyard over here in the old city, which is about 20 meters long. And that's where they were buried in 1900.
Okay, the inscription, if you look,
Now, why do I mention
right here under,
because
see it?
yeah, there it is, hidden there. Which is before the excavations here too. Okay. They built a memorial to those who fell in battle with the Romans. And that memorial's over on Mount
In
Hermon.
70.
Now, if you go to that
through.
memorial on Mount Hermon, they were able
And when this was happening, that's when the Romans were sieging at Masada.
So perhaps someone thought in the 1950s
No.
that this is
Well, how are they able to build it?
To build it.
Conrad's with.
That stone down there, it's 25 feet long.
On the battle. I don't know if that's true or not. It's a great story nonetheless.
So the temple and Jerusalem were destroyed the 9th of Av on the Jewish calendar. It's a day of mourning to this day. It falls in the summertime. 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av it's called. It's a day commemorating the destruction of Jerusalem. A fast day, 25-hour fast day. It was one of the days that many times the Jews, for different periods of history, that they were allowed to come into Jerusalem and read the Book of Lamentations here along the Western Wall. And as a result, that's why the Western Wall was named by others the Wailing Wall, because the Book of Lamentations is a book of mourning the destruction of Jerusalem. 9th of Av today is still a fast day. There are thousands of people that come dressed in white, barefoot, fasting, no water, no food for 25 hours here to the Western Wall to commemorate the destruction of the temple. And it's something that's been commemorated for 2,000 years. There's a story of Napoleon who was passing through Germany, and he passed a synagogue and heard the Jews crying inside the synagogue and asked his guide, "What's going on? Why are the Jews crying?" And the guide responded, "They're crying because their temple was destroyed." And Napoleon quickly says, "I'm so sorry to hear that. My condolences. When did this happen?" And the guide said 2,000 years ago, more or less. And then Napoleon responded by saying, if a people cries for 2,000 years for their temple, they will return to their land. So Napoleon, interestingly enough, also was very helpful to the Jews in terms of the emancipation and equal rights in Europe at the time. So he's looked on favorably. Also interesting, he didn't conquer Jerusalem. He wasn't interested in Jerusalem. He was just strategic, not a religious person. So we're going to go around back up the steps to the southern steps, and then we're going to go back to the bus. We're a little bit late, but we want to go to the southern steps because that was an approach to the temple, which would have been an approach that Jesus would have walked, and the thousands of pilgrims. I also just want to point out this tunnel system. You saw a bunch of people coming out of it. The other end of it actually is still under a dig. The archaeologists are working on it, and part of it has been open to guides, and you can see the actual processional road that would have been taken up to the Temple Mount, up to this point, the extension of this one going all the way down to the Siloam Pool. We're going to see that in the city of David. And the part that I saw recently is an amazing find, it's underneath an Arab section of Jerusalem, so it's very controversial, of course, the digging of it. But on that processional road, they have found the remains of a cross, wood remains of a cross, and it's known, of course, that the Romans crucified people on a daily basis. So they did it right outside the city, and they would have done it where people would see it, because it's supposed to be a warning against the population, against rebellion and so forth. So that hasn't been open to the public yet, but that has been found.